Yeah, it's got an old.
Oh, is it?
That was the only thing we could do. It's like, oh, whiteboard, look, I can whiteboard, but draw pictures. We can't do Skype, we can't email.
Because it's going to
It's
hold.
not like you can have Word, but you don't have OneDrive, so you can't do it with Word.
Yeah, because it won't open. Yeah. You can't create a new document.
So Dana is saying, well, we should lock all the USB ports on. I'm thinking, if we do that, then.
Very close from her. The next row of 6.
Being closer?
Mum's old big brown
Does it has a lot.
Yes, and it's same here.
Looking at yourself talking.
Yeah. You know, because I'm a main bugger, so.
Would you like to give the intro? Alrighty then. Fred's on the door. Yep. Yeah. No, so you're on the door. So if any latecomers, they got your number.
Fred's on the door.
Move this away from the device.
Yeah, it's not a good thing to be mixing liquid.
No.
Nice.
Good, everyone. Sweet, welcome everyone to our July edition of the Microsoft Cloud Infrastructure User Group.
And the 5 people that are watching us now.
Oh, 5 people. Hi.
Yeah. Hey, it's working.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah, it works.
For those who don't know, we're trying to stream these onto YouTube as well for those who can't make it, and it becomes a video for those who can't make it and want to watch it a bit later. Instead of Netflix, I'm sure you want to watch our really highly produced podcast
With the
webcam.
fancy Blue Yeti speaker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Nice. So a bit of housekeeping. If this is the first time you've been to one of these events, you need to know that if you need the toilet at any time during the night, you can get out to the toilets, but it's hard to get back in without a swipe card. There should be a swipe card on each of the doors here. Just the one, cool. So make sure you pick that up before you head out to the toilets. And they are located in the main foyer sections, like by the lifts when you came up. The ladies and gents either side of the lift. Labs or PIM?
Dev Labs.
DevTest Labs first, and then Privileged Identity Management after that, which is a pretty cool feature. So that you don't have to grant people admin rights across your say 365 subscription all the time. But Brendan will tell you a lot more about that. Cool. To kick things off, just going to have a bit of a news wrap up. So at the moment, Microsoft Inspire is happening in Washington, D.C. So that's what used to be the World Partner Conference, been renamed. So 2 big pieces of news came out of that. Yes, first being Azure Stack is now available to order. Started to get shipped in September. Anyone here not know about Azure Stack? What it is? No, you're all good? Cool. What's it?
We've already got it.
You already got it? Oh wow. What, the actual hardware?
In your garage.
Next week you'll see it going on. Orcon UFB.
Yeah, surprised me was the kind of the hardware pricing. Does anyone know what ballpark that's in?
Is it 4K or something?
It's
It's $300,000 US dollars.
Depending.
Yeah, depending. What's around there, right?
It's between 100 to 400K.
Yeah, US. US. It's still up there.
Affordable.
Yeah. But you do get a discount on the Azure services that are on top of it, though. Yeah. So that's handy. So that was a big piece of news. And the other big piece of news is Microsoft 365, which Alan's going to be pushing over quickly. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
very
want to tell us
quickly.
about it?
Yeah. So they announced that they're going to bundle Office 365 with some of the security bits and pieces, as well as Windows 10. So, and a lot of people were doing that anyway. So a lot of the customers we work with were purchasing both Office 365 E3 licenses, and then purchasing the security E3 license, and then doing a Windows 10 upgrade and everything else. So it makes sense that it's now just one bundle. I haven't got the details as to yet whether they're going to increase the price because they're bundling it together, but it kind of wouldn't make sense to say we're going to bundle it and now charge just the same as we was to buy it all separately. So I suspect it's all going to join in. The other piece they said is that they realised that security is not just for enterprises, and they've realised that the smaller businesses also want to have the same level of security applied. So if you're actually on a business plan with Office 365, so if you're like under 300 users, you'll still be able to get access to all the security features as well, which is really good. Because we have a lot of small businesses in New Zealand, so it kind of fits pretty well for people to be able to use both sets of features. If you actually go to there's actually a page up now, which is the Microsoft 365 page. If you go to you can look at either the business or enterprise one, and there's some nice people talking to each other and showing you how wonderful 365 features are, but they're really just 365 features that we already know. But really at the bottom is the kind of key where it actually sort of shows you what you'll now get. So all of the first set are pretty standard. They're what was in Office 365. But now, of course, you get the threat protection, the Azure Active Directory P1, as well as device management with Intune, and you can use Azure Information Protection and things like that. So it's now all bundled as one piece. I'll probably do one on Azure Information Protection next time, as well as some stuff around labeling, which is coming to Office 365, because they're both kind of joined together, and show you some how that works. So now they've brought it in under the the one umbrella. That kind of makes sense. And you can still see like things like the Power BI Pro and My Analytics is still in the E5, but that was always part of the E5 Office 365 license anyway. So the Office 365 features haven't changed in terms of what you get, but they've now just bundled in all of the security pieces as well. So that's that. The other interesting one that came out was they've now got in the preview or beta APIs for all of the analytics. So all of the data that's now in the back end of Office 365, you can go to the reports and use Power BI, but you can also now use these endpoints, so you can actually go and call these and get all to say the SharePoint site usage. I haven't looked at it in detail at the moment, but you can basically say for a period of 90 days, get me a CSV file of all the activity across SharePoint. Right. How much detail that goes to, like which pages and which users and what time and stuff like that, not certain, because I haven't managed to actually try it, but give it a go. But you do need to, one thing you will need to do is actually, you need to create an Azure app and give that Azure app the read all reports permission, right? And then you get the token for the app, and then you can use that within the call to get the CSV file. Right? So you just need to get your admin just to register an app and say, give you all the rights to reports. You'll be sweet. So I've got to find, just finding a decent tenant that I can get the data from is the more tricky bit. But if I can convince someone in work to give me a key to get reports, that'll be good. And then essentially you can just go get like details about the files that people are using, which will cover like OneDrive, sort of SharePoint files, the sites that are set up, so different site collections and subsites and things.
Isn't that what Delve does already? Because
No,
you
it doesn't.
can actually see what people do with what they're using, how they're using it.
Yeah, well, this is more just a straight CSV file of what you would get. If you went to the Office 365 reporting and say export the data, essentially kind of this is roughly the same thing, right? Except now you can call this as a CSV. So you could set up a scheduled job that would actually go and run this, retrieve it every 30 days, store it in a database, and then write your own Power BI or something over the top of it. That's what you want to do, right? So that's, we'll later on have a look at that in more detail. The other one that you may or may not have realised is that you now have forms in Office 365. This used to actually be part of education, and it had been there for ages, and everyone was on the user voice going, can we have this for enterprise? Because we had, you got like SharePoint lists, but they're kind of quite, you have to know what you're doing with SharePoint lists to kind of set it up and add columns and things like that. And then they're not very, like a list is something more permanent, whereas you might just want to run a survey or a quick questionnaire or something like that. And there was always survey lists in SharePoint, but they haven't updated survey lists since 2007, I think. It still looks the same.
There's no modern one?
No, there's no modern survey list. So this really replaces that. So if you've got Office 365, it would have just appeared. I think this is first release. Still not sure.
It's still in preview.
Yeah, it's still in preview and first release. But essentially it's been used by education for ages. So it's actually not even version 1. It's probably version whatever. Because it's been out for over a year. Right? Now what you can do once you just go into, you can just find it under your app launcher waffle. It'll be under new if you've not been here before. And then you can just go create a new form, or you can create a quiz. Right? If you create a quiz, which is kind of what I've done here, you can actually give points to the answers and say, huh?
There's your hint from the education phase.
Yeah, and then you can say which one's the right answer. So you can use this even as like an onboarding thing or something like that to go, hey, you need to do this little compliancy survey and say what the answer is.
What happens if you fail when you're onboarded?
And then you have to do it again. Yeah. And then once you go through, so this is the form I already created. You can actually go in and add more options. You can create star ratings, date fields, and you can even do branching as well, which is quite cool. So you can actually say, if you answer yes to this, then jump to question 10 and skip questions 3, 4, and 5, which is quite nice. You can never do that in surveys. So that's quite useful. And then at the end, you can actually give them a score and say what their score is for the answer. So I created this one and sent it around to everyone internally. It says, is this thing cool? Do you like forms? Why don't you like forms? You only get top points if you answer yes, it's really cool. And then once, if you're the admin of this, you can then go to the responses and you get a nice little graph. So you can see how many people have answered it, which is not very many. What their average answers were for each question. So you can kind of gauge how people feel. So really useful for short-term surveying. You could use it like if you're running an event and you want to find out, how many people are going to attend. Do you have any, meal preferences and that sort of thing. So even Microsoft use this when they send out we got like an MVP catch up in a couple of weeks' time. They actually use forms to ask us, are you attending and what's all your details, and then we fill it all in and they obviously download it. So you can get it as a Excel spreadsheet at the end of the day. So you can actually go and view those. You can share it with either people in your organization only, or you can say anyone who has the link. And then you can also do things like grab a QR code and you can download that and then print it on something and people can snap the QR code and fill in the form on a mobile phone, because it actually works on a mobile phone. So all those pretty cool ideas. You can also make it into a template, so you can create your base template with your logo and stuff like that. And the last thing that's pretty cool is you can actually create a flow. So I can actually create a flow, and if I say my trigger point is trigger point is forms. It's better. You'll actually come up and say Microsoft Forms, and then you say when somebody responds. So it's not intended as like running a full workflow process. Definitely use a list if you're going to run something like more permanent. But if you just want to be notified when somebody's responded because you want to then take further action or run an approval or notify their manager that they've signed up for the event or whatever it might be, and then you can just pick off the form. So it will load, what do you think of forms? And then I can add another step and go, in this step I want to run an approval, and I'm going to run the approval via Outlook. Approval event. Approval. Send an approval. There you go. And then just configure up the email to send to whoever and say, hey, approve this one item that somebody filled in. Very basic. So much better quick sort of form capability. When I clicked create flow earlier, it said, sorry, this is not available for you to do at this time. I have no idea why. So if you get that error message, and don't worry, it's still in preview, as it says, preview. So if it's broken, well, it's preview. And that was the last thing I wanted to show you. Next, I was hoping that I'd have communication sites running in my tenant, but they're not actually released into my tenant. Have you got it?
You got it.
How did you get it?
Oh,
It's all about who you know.
Yeah. Well, you should have demoed it. Anyway, so hopefully next time we'll be able to do communication sites, and we'll talk about that and when that's going. That was it.
Yeah,
Right.
Cool. Over to Daryl.
Are we over to...
And then you got something? No?
Kind of, not really. I mean, you covered a few things. There was something else. Is this logged in as you? Or
Yep.
you got
that
stream
window is.
going?
No.
No. Perhaps
It's
not.
logged in as my Provoke account. Are you going to start
Yeah, I'm
sharing...
No, okay, I won't.
videos
I'll
as
talk
my-
about it conceptually. So imagine, for a little while, there's been another service in preview by the name of Stream, Microsoft Stream. So they've attached the word Microsoft at the beginning of it, so you know that's the theme at the moment. And it is going to be the replacement for Office 365 video. So if organisations have been using that to store videos and share them, sometimes a good practice is to take your meeting recordings and drop them in there for people who haven't caught up with things. So that's going to be your... Is it there? I'm not going to break his tenant. And what they have also released with this is there's 2 tiers to Stream. So for 90 days, when you kick it off to start off with, and I just discovered this, you get access to the Plan 2, which does a bit of cognitive analysis. It'll look for faces in the video. And then what it will apply is faces at the bottom so that you can zoom to a certain person's face in the video. So it's a nice way of going, I want to see this speaker. So it would be quite useful for our YouTube streaming as well if we had that sort of thing. The other thing it does is a transcript, and kind of not so well for some certain accents for some reason, but it will turn what you've said in that video into a transcript beside it, and then you can jump to that certain point in the video. So the key thing here is, and I'm sure it's going to improve, that it makes content and videos more searchable rather than it being this linear thing that you've got to watch through and hope that someone gives you a bookmark to a certain piece. You'll be able to search through that video looking for certain keywords or a certain presenter. Now, once that 90 days is up for your trial, it is a Plan 2 feature, which you can attach to an E3 if you've got that, or it's bundled in with the E5 as well. So there's more of these services that are now making the E5 a little more attractive. I think I'll leave it at that. There's plenty of other stuff. What I was going to do is jump into the Office 365 admin app. So if anyone is an admin here, it's a good practice to go in and see what's going on in the message center. And I guess I like to do a regular stream to sort of go through what's happening in my message center and try and make certain people aware. I'm finding now that there are things that are dropped into there before they're blogged about and talked about publicly as well. So if you look at that message center and you have access to it, it's specific to your tenant. It also has general information that's going to be announced as well, and it'll keep you up to date and informed about what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
That's it. So we'll hand over to Brendan as our guest speaker for the day. And I'll shut all that down so
Thank you.
you get access to my tin.
Right, so has anyone heard about Dev Test Labs? Anyone know about it, how to play with it? It's been around for about a year now, I think, coming up almost a year. So it's gone through a few improvements since that. And it's quite a nice little feature in Azure. So first of all, what is it? I like to think of it as a bit of a container, but and when I mean a container, I don't mean a Docker style container, so don't get confused with that sort of container in Azure. But it's really a place where a lot of resources are placed and managed together in a lab, and you'll see when I do the demo how that kind of comes together. And so you can it's somewhere we can access a lot of these resources in a single place. And in a lab, you can have formulas, images, and policies, and you can monitor costs. So everything you want to do when you're letting developers and test people do things in Azure. So the main component of it is you get a VNet, so it's an isolated network all by itself. So when you create a lab, it creates a separate virtual network. You obviously get virtual machines that you've created in the lab, or someone might have uploaded an image into the lab. Images out of the Azure Marketplace, and again we'll see how we can manage those, or images you've created in the labs or been uploaded. Formulas, so predefined configurations with specific artifacts. So artifacts are really a whole bunch of dev stuff, so it might be .NET, it might be Chrome, it might be some Tropically stuff, it might be some stuff you've added in, so we'll show you, there's quite a long list of that, and some policies. So why would you want to use Dev Test Labs? Well, the first one is cost. So you can track expenditure inside it. So it gives you a bit of a trend of what that lab's going to cost. So there's maybe you're running a project, a development project. So the project manager can now go into Dev Test Labs and see what that cost is for all of those developers and testing that's going on. The other one is control. So you can limit the number of virtual machines that can run inside a lab, and that can be on a per user basis, and the entire lab itself. So you can stop people kind of going crazy. You can also limit the types of machines that can be run. So obviously in Azure we've got these different A classes and D classes and F class machines. So you can be very specific about what type of machines they can run, and even what type of hard drives. So how many, if they want to have premium drives, you allow that, and how many they can have, because again those are relatively expensive, particularly for dev test. As well as what the type of images they can run. So you don't necessarily want them going and running SQL Enterprise just to do some basic database testing. And the other one is efficiency. So these formulas and having images and giving developers access to this kind of container or this space that's controlled is about efficiency. So they don't have to go and ask someone else to build a machine, and we don't have to wait for it to be prepped. They can just go and spin it up themselves and start getting on and doing some development and testing. And the third one is about isolation. So we don't want the aliens getting out of the lab into production, so that's why it's in a separate VNet. It's all by itself, so you can kind of let the developers loose and know it's not going to affect your production environment, which of course is what every IT manager likes to know. What doesn't it do? It doesn't serve beer on the river. It doesn't do PaaS, because PaaS is obviously very public. You can still use PaaS, you can still interface with PaaS, but you can't kind of put PaaS inside the container because they're really public services. So things like Azure Backup, if you want it in Azure, you can image that back into the lab as well.
So that roll out things like Azure Functions as well.
That's a PaaS.
Yeah.
So you can use functions, you can interface to it because it's a public IP address, so you can call it as any other service, but you can't manage it inside the lab. So you have to go to the normal Azure portal and spin that up.
Yeah.
So what does it cost? It's absolutely sugar free. It is $0 for the lab, but there are buts. Lots of buts. You pay for the resources that you run inside the lab. So that's mainly virtual machines and storage. If you have lots of public IP addresses, you go for free. So if you spin up 15 public IP addresses, etc., you'll start paying for that. If you want to put a VPN gateway on the VNet, you do that. All those sorts of things. So any resource that you use inside it, again, it's really just that container definition to manage it. Doesn't mean things are free, which is why you want to put some policies in place to control costs. So now we can play my demo tape.
Where do you find these images, Brendan?
Google, man. Google.
60.
That's my demo. That's my demo tape. Let me just set my band. So here's the Dev Test Labs. Ultimately, nice. Whoops, so you can't see me. I haven't started my presentation. Talking to myself. It's a nice little test tube playing in the lab. And so if we go back to Dev Test Lab. So I've got one lab here. You can obviously create as many labs as you like. I haven't set it up in here, but obviously there is the full role-based access control, so you can create permissions. You might give someone administrative rights to go and set the policies, and then you give users lab access rights, so they're a little bit controlled. So one of the things you want to do when you move in there is start to look at configuration and policies. So I haven't spent much money in my lab yet because I only turned it on a few days ago, but you would see obviously the cost trend. So this is where you can kind of track how we're going, how much are we using towards that lab, and similar to what you do when you go into billing in Azure, it tells you what the cost is each resource. So in this one here I've turned on the policy to control virtual machine sizes, and so it's listed everything that's available in Azure, and I've only selected certain types of machines that can be run inside this particular lab, and so there's everything in there. And then we can control, as I said, how many virtual machines. So every user in the lab can spin up 4 machines under their user account. That's their machines assigned to them. And then I've said only one of those machines can have a premium disk. So it might be a SQL box, but you don't need premium disk to say run a web server. So again, it's all about that cost control. But then I can also control how many can go inside the lab itself. So I've said 20, so in theory if you had 5 users they could spin up 4 each. If I had 6 users, someone's going to miss out because if 5 people turn on all their servers, 6 guys are going to go, I can't turn on any more because it's a limitation at the lab, so he's going to have to bribe someone else to turn off a machine so he can spin his up. But you can at least say, even if you had 2 users and they wanted to spin up lots of machines, I've got a control of how much I'm doing in the lab. So again, it's all about that cost control. Because developers will probably just turn on 50 SQL boxes, and again overall how many can have premium disks. The other really good feature, of course, Dev Test Labs, is developers go home and they're not using the server, not doing development, so we can turn them off at the end of the night. We can send a notification, and we can even put a standard webhook, so we want to lock that into some sort of management system or service desk. We can do that. And just to be nice for developers, we can also turn them on at specific times on certain days of the week. I've turned it off, so a developer would have to come and turn these on themselves, again, either via PowerShell script or via the portal. You can configure a repository, so there's a public one, but if you're doing code-based stuff or ARM templates inside a Git or GitHub and stuff like that, you can add that repository in. Obviously tells us what the virtual network is, and I can add multiple virtual networks if I want to create more isolation. And then, as I said, in the marketplace images, so these are all the sort of pre-built images and software licensing that Microsoft have. Again, we can select what we want them to do. So if they don't need BizTalk or they don't need to play with CentOS Linux, then we can turn that off, because it just makes the list nice and short when a developer's spinning up a machine. We can specify what our custom images are. I don't have any in here, but again, you can build those in the lab or again upload them. And then the formulas are about making it again about that efficiency and helping developers where we pre-configure a set of responses to build out a machine. I want to load my formulas. So it's basically going to specify, what's the administrator name, what's the administrator password, which is actually saved as a secret, what network it's going to go on, what size machine it is. Now they can change that when the machine is being created. But it just again helps them, kind of pre-populates it, so you could just go click into a server name, go enter, and then that machine will be built. I might just add one because it's, there we go. So I've given it a description, I've given it what the local admin account is going to be, what the password is, so again that's saved in a secret, so they don't, you'll tell them what it is, but they don't need to remember and write it down. You can have them all, a whole bunch of passwords, a whole bunch of parameters pre-configured in the secrets list. I've said this machine should be an A1 machine, and I've selected some artifacts to be installed automatically as the machine is built. So up here I have selected Zip, Chrome and .NET, which might be a typical sort of developer basic code. As you can see here, we have quite an extensive list of items that you can add on. Chef client, fiddler. You can install a bunch of chocolatey packages. So there's another whole bunch of packages, and there's a whole bunch of public ones listed out there as well, I think on GitHub, of chocolatey packages. So Node.js, Notepad, Putty, Slack, if you're into that, SysPrep if you need to do that, Visual Studio, a whole bunch of Visual Studio deployment stuff where it deploys. So you can add all these artifacts and have them pre-configured or have a formula set to install those automatically. So again, you don't have to waste time installing the machine and then going back installing .NET and installing Chrome and installing all your favorite stuff. We can specify again what network we want it on, what subnet we want it on, if we configure multiple subnets, how we want to do IP addressing. We can even specify if we want this machine to be deleted. So I only need it for a couple of days, so let's just delete it. So again, we save costs. We don't end up machines running for months on end that no one knows about. And in terms of making it claimable, we can make it a machine that's kind of available to everyone in the lab. So it's not assigned to any one particular user, and so someone can claim that machine. So as an administrator, you could build a whole bunch of machines and say, here's a whole bunch of SQL servers that are pre-configured with our test data on it. I built a whole bunch of web servers with the current code on it. And you go, great, I need to do my app. So they could just be a bunch of machines that you could go and claim as yours and add into your lab rather than having to deploy them. And down here it's saying actually how many of this formula, when someone creates this machine, should they create. So we could say we want to create 2 if we want to test maybe load balancing across some web servers, or 3 if it's that sort of thing that you're doing. Maybe it's a front-end application server. So that's formulas. And then obviously you've got access control, as I said, you can manage who can have access to it. You can put tags and locks in there as you do with any other Azure resource. So I've got 2 virtual machines running, and if I click add, you can see here it's given me a formula at the top. Now I don't have any images, I haven't created an image, but if I had created an image and built that in the lab, so you typically do a machine, install all your stuff you want on it, build it how you like it, and then there's an option to click on the machine and say create it as an image. I could kick off. They would also appear at the top. They always appear at the top, and then the rest of these, the center rest down, is those selected marketplace images that are allowed in the lab they can select. So if we went here and selected the lab, you can see it's got all this pre-configured information. I just need to give it a name. Now, as I say, I can go and change this. So it's not a fixed formula. It's not that I can't stop the developer deploying something else, but it's just pre-configured on what the ideal one should be. And I can go change it to something else if I think it should be something else as I deploy the formula. There's no claimable virtual machines, but again, as I said, you can go ahead and claim them. You can see all the virtual machines in the lab, so I can see the other virtual machines that the other users are running. So I can see maybe what Nick's running and say, hey, I see you've got an SQL server, could I grab an image of that, or can I claim that back if you're not using it, etc. You can see the data disk, so you might have a bunch of data disks in there. Maybe it's got some information on it, you've detached it from a machine. You can now reattach it to another machine. There might be a whole set of data or something in it, or maybe some SQL backups I store on a data disk. I import it, attach it to a machine, restore some database backups, and then I can detach it and sit that there, build another SQL server, attach it to an SQL restore. These are all the formulas. And so my secrets are basically just a bunch of variables that are encrypted and stored inside it. So I can call it SQL admin user, and I can give it a parameter. And then if I go and click on that, it's stored inside the Azure Key Vault. So again, it saves me having to create it. I can just go back and select it out of my secrets and know that's kind of predefined. There's a list of pre-saved passwords to make your life a little bit easier. And then you have the configuration policies. If administrators want to use it, still administer the resource that you're using, they can still do that inside the portal. So there's still a normal virtual machine inside Azure. So if you've got administrators, they can still see all the machines that are running. And so maybe you've left, or the person who's administering the lab can't get to it. The administrator could go and delete all those machines, or clean them up, or turn them off. So you it's a container for developers, but within the overall Azure environment that people can still manage. And that's basically DevTest Labs. To go back to my next slide. Oh. Any questions? No? Yes.
Is it available with any subscription, or
Is it available?
Is it dependent on subscription you're on?
No.
So I usually am on my MSD, and I usually burn up my credits because I run VMs.
So as I say, you pay for the resources that you spin up inside the lab.
Right. So
So obviously, if you have a limited subscription value, then you'll exceed that pretty quickly. But it's just generally available. It's normal. It's essentially free to go and create the lab. There's nothing particularly special you need to have to use DevTest Labs.
How readily do you use them at Datacom? Is it like a fairly normal thing?
Probably
Standard
not
practice?
enough.
Yeah.
Not enough. I don't think anyone's actually aware of it.
Right.
DevTest Labs, don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Might leave that alone. Might be dangerous.
Right. So is the process still the devs kind of, or admins build machines for them to use rather than give them access to their systems?
I mean, some of them are using it on customers' tenants, so they kind of go in there and spin things up. Some of them use them under their MSDN subscription, so you don't really need a dev test labs because it's kind of all your own. I guess it's really aimed for maybe shops who have a lot of developers, maybe in customers who go, I've got this Azure, but I don't. Same thing. Someone in the IT manager goes, I don't want them playing on the same Azure or the same network with me, so sure, I'm happy for them, but normally you'd say, here's a little room for you, or put it on your laptop, or we'll put you on another network, or create some firewall rules and isolate you out, so you can kind of create that same environment. Let's say separate VNet, here's the machines. And it's also good because I mean, otherwise you have to do it via templates, right? I could build a set of templates and say you can spin up, to create a ESQL box, you have to run this template. I could go and hack it and change the machine type, I could put some policies in place. This makes it easy. I'll create a lab. It's also very good if you're doing like specific development projects. So for the project, we'll create a lab. Here's 3 developers that belong on that. I need to track the cost for it for the project manager. You can build that app. When it's finished, we can just blow it all away. Take those machines out. I say that they're normal virtual machines, so if you want to copy them out, you just copy from one storage account to another. Excuse me. So it's probably more for that than necessarily partners where you're kind of interacting with a lot of different customers. But we should be probably using it more. Of course, we need to manage cost and know what's going on as well. Right, so I'll go on to talk about too many cooks in the kitchen, so bringing order with PIM. So prior to PIM, in terms of, so PIM is privileged identity management, not the alcoholic drink. I won't talk about alcohol.
Totally different
topic. So prior to PIM and Office 365 in particular, early Office 365, you really only had one type of administrator. It was called the global admin, and that was God. It could do anything inside 365. Then later on, they started adding some additional ones. So you could customize down. You could do a SharePoint administrator, or you could just be user administrator, or password administrator, or service or billing. But basically, anytime you wanted to do anything real inside 365, you had to be a global admin. And the best practice is not to give everyone global admin, because someone might get hold of your credentials and they could cause a bit of havoc. Or someone might go a bit rogue inside the company, they just fired you and you're really a bit pissed off. And you go, I'm going to delete everyone's accounts or do a bunch of stupid stuff. So you don't really know what people are doing. It's a bit too much power to give to everyone. So they came up with privileged identity management. So it's a mechanism to allow you to give administrative rights on demand. And this very much aligns with how Microsoft managed the cloud. So if you didn't know what happens when you log a service request and you get an engineer, they've got thousands of engineers around the world and they probably come and go. None of them have administrative rights. They only get administrative rights when you log a ticket and they elevate to solve that problem. They only get the rights required to fix that problem. So if it's just the mailbox problem, they only get the mailbox rights. They don't get the global admin rights. They fix it and then it gets taken off them. And this is essentially the system now available for you. And the same applies in Azure. And that's how they kind of ensure that everything's secure and no one has access to your data. I can't just go run, if I'm an Azure administrator, I can't just log on and start roaming the world. I need to elevate and then it's logged, it's audited, there's alerts, and I have to justify a reason as to why I do that. And so as it is logged and audited, so there's full reporting, so I can go and see what's going on. And when you elevate, an email can go off to administrator, so they immediately see that you've been elevated to that right. And if they don't think that should be right, they may question as to why you have that. There can be required approval, so approval can either be automatic or someone else will need to approve your request. So you say, I want to have global admin rights, maybe Nick needs to go in and review it, you need to say yes or no. Yes, you've entered some valid reasons, I'm going to allow it, or no, I'm not. And you can specify a time limit, anything from half an hour to 72 hours to grant that right. So with global admin, you may only give it for 2 hours, you shouldn't need it for any more, it should only be for one particular task, and then it's taken off you and you need to request again to validate the reason. And so you get notifications and alerts. So you can specify if someone's requesting it like 3 times within 3 hours, then there should be an alert, because that's like, why do you need global admin rights so many times throughout the day, all the time? And it's just alerting, there might be a very valid reason. We can also force you to enter mandatory information, so you have to enter a service ticket number and the service ticket system. So again, there must be a reason that's audited and trailed, there's a change control, or there's some logging as to why you're logging on as a global admin to do something. There's got to be a really good reason for that. For those that require higher privileges, so if you are doing like global admin or exchange admin, then it's going to have quite a significant impact. You need to do multi-factor authentication. So let's just make sure you are who you say you are, and it's not someone trying to get unauthorized access. And then they've put a system in there, and I guess it's designed maybe if you have a large number of administrators. I'm not sure how well it will work because it's an honesty policy, but you can create regular role assignment reviews. So you basically send out a review to everyone to say, hey Nick, I see you've got these 5 administrative roles. Do you think you still need these roles? And if you go, yes, of course I do. I don't want to give them up. It's like saying, you've got a car, do you still need it? It's like, absolutely. So why do we need it? So as I said, it's it doesn't follow best security practice really, just blindly give everyone, it's the same as you don't give everyone sort of domain admin rights, so you create another account, or you'd be quite restrictive on who you give that to. So say you can make unauthorized changes without approval, without tracking, maybe behind you don't know what's going on. Things aren't logged. So one of the kind of thing people kind of get a bit confused, we have a very good sort of change control on-prem when you want to go and change something on the server or on the network. It seems to get a bit loose when you come to the cloud. Depends how well that policy is kind of enforced. So this make sure that you are kind of, again, making people do a ticket, so there's some sort of level of tracking and logging. As I say, it does align with Microsoft's best practice for managing cloud services. And it's another way to allow third-party access. Again, some of our customers have multiple parties. Often you're giving out global access, global admin rights all over the show. You find out 6 months later that they don't need it anymore because they only do a SharePoint site. This now you can get the auditing and you can kind of manage it. And again, you get reports to say who hasn't used their privileges for a long period of time. So Nick hasn't logged on as a global admin for a month, and maybe he doesn't really need it. So let's just review and see if it does still need it, take it off. The management of the privileges, or the privilege management, is separate from the global admin. So by giving someone global admin rights, you're not necessarily letting them go and modify how PIM works. So you can have 2 separate administrators, so it is quite isolated and controlled, which is good. And the other exciting one is they're extending it out to Azure. It's the same problem in Azure. I've got a bunch of virtual machines. Do I give Nick access to turn all those machines on and off? Does he need it all the time? Should he have that? Should he have full subscription access and do anything he likes? Or should he actually request eligibility and we can log it, track it, and do some approving on it? So that is coming to Azure resources, which will be good. There is a cost. It's not free. You need Azure AD Premium P2 subscription, so not the P1 but the P2. So that's a feature in there. Or Enterprise Mobility Security EMS E5, or now Microsoft 365 Enterprise, because it comes bundled in.
It'll be in the E5, I think. Which gives you the
So
P2.
again, in the E5, I don't know if you noticed when Anna brought it up, it did say that you got the E2 included in that E5 subscription. So again, kind of bundling all together because it kind of makes sense to do that. So back to demonstration time.
There's some notes for you. So I'm assuming when they bring it to Azure, it'll be against sort of any RBAC role?
I would imagine that would be the case.
Yeah, that would be pretty valuable.
So in our Azure portal in here, it's called the Azure AD Privilege Identity. So it's a separate admin pane from Azure AD. Now I've gone through and done it already, but you normally go down here to the AD roles and you just do a sign up process. And it just takes you through a couple of steps of a wizard and sets up multi-factor authentication and just validates you have the relevant subscription. The subscription, you only need to give the subscription to those administrators that you want to use PIM, those that you want to elevate or make eligible to promote. You don't have to give it to every user in your organisation. So you may only need to buy 20 E5 licenses, say if you've got 20 odd people, including third parties. For third parties, you may just want to buy the Azure AD Premium P2. You may not need the whole set of features of EMS. You only need P2 to do the PIM stuff. So under settings, we can look at the privileged roles. And you can see there's quite a reasonable number of them now. So there's much more than what's in Office 365. And it includes ones like Intune as well. So we can do some Intune stuff. Again, quite a privileged thing. You could do some damage. And so we can specify, how long we want to give that right for. Do we want to notify administrators? Do we want to force them to enter some ticket information? In most cases, Microsoft has made it mandatory for multi-factor authentication, again on all those that require significant changes. I can't turn it off. I must do MFA for this particular role. And in this case here, I can require it to be approved. If I disable that, it'll just automatically approve itself, but it's obviously logged and held in the reports. So if you go look at something like a directory reader, it doesn't require multi-factor authentication because, hey, it's just reading, I can't do too much damage. But if I wanted to be particularly conscious, I could turn that on and go, well, they could find out some information I don't really want them to know, so maybe I should have multi-factor if that meets your security policies. And so the good thing there is obviously all those settings are on a per role basis. So you might say global admin gets 1 hour, but an exchange administrator can have 4 hours because maybe they have to do quite a lot of mail type activity. So you can be very selective on that. As I said, there are a bunch of alerts. So administrators aren't using their privileged roles. So next one provoke, can you say global admin rights, but it's been 6 months. So I'll get an alert to say, hey, Nick hasn't logged on for 3 months. He probably doesn't need that anymore. He's not involved with that project. Better take it off him. It's a number of days without activation. So again, it's just that good security practice, cleaning up, making sure people don't have rights they don't need. Roles that don't require multi-factor authentication for activation. So again, are there any there that I should be reviewing that I should probably be a bit more protected? It doesn't have AD Premium 2. Roles that are outside of PIM. So maybe someone's gone into Office 365 and given Nick global admin rights. It's like, well, we don't do that. We're trying to implement it through PIM. So let's go and clean that up, find those roles and find out why people are being kind of circumnavigating the PIM access. So that is kind of a bit of a hole, I guess. Nick could elevate himself as a global admin, and then he could permanently inside himself a global admin and say, hey, great, I don't have to keep going through this whole trouble of elevating all the time. So we want to know that someone's maybe done that. To do that. Conversely, are there too many people? Are there too many cooks in the kitchen supporting the recipe? So how many of the global admins we should have and what's that percentage should be in order to get that alert? And then the really important one that you might want to know is so if there's 10 minutes between an activation and there's been 3 renewals, we want to know why someone's constantly activating all the time. Could be an indication that they're trying to do something a bit unauthorized to do that. And then, as I said, you can do these access reviews. Something down here, access reviews. So you can go through and specify, I want to send this out to all of the security administrators, and so I have members review themselves. And I can have reminders, so I can pester them all the time to say, Nick, you haven't done your review. Nick, you haven't done your review. Nick, I really want you to review your rights. Please do it. And you require a reason on approval, so you can get them. So it's just making sure we're clean and tidy and everyone's got the appropriate rights that they need. So under users here, I've created a couple of users. So we can see here that I'm a permanent security administrator and a permanent global administrator. And by the way, again, you don't have to be a global administrator in order to administer the privileged identity management, and you don't have to be an administrator or to be an approver. So if needs to be an approval process for an elevation, and you can have multiple approvers. So it could be 3 or 4 people that all get the email, and one of them will do the approval for it. So it doesn't have to be just reliant on one person. Harry here, he is eligible to elevate himself as a global administrator. He's just a user in 365. He has no administrative rights at all. So he's just a standard user. And Mary Jones, again, can elevate herself as an Exchange administrator, but she has permanent password administrator, service administrator, and user administrator. So she doesn't have to go through the PIM process in order to change someone's details in 365 or check the service health or maybe change a password. But if she wants to do some Exchange stuff, she'll have to elevate herself and say, I need to be given Exchange administrator rights in order to do some Exchange administration. And we can see how that looks if we can log on to Office 365. We're going to admin. So effectively what it's actually doing is when I go and elevate the rights, it will essentially be the same as me logging on to 365, giving Nick global admin rights and say, hey Nick, you can log in now and do some stuff, and putting a little reminder in my calendar to come back an hour later and take it off him. So in the background it's just turning it on, it's just turning it off. There's nothing really too sophisticated about it. So if we look at Harry, as I said, he's just a user, so he has no admin rights. He can't do anything inside 365. He won't even get the admin tile in his waffle. Mary, as I said, we've given them password, service, and user administration. And you can do that either inside 365 here, as you normally would, or you can do it back here inside wherever my PIM went to. Did I actually close it?
It's in the same browser.
That's Mary. It's over here. So I could add a user here. So I can also give Harry Intune device admin rights. It is a little bit repetitive adding users. They are apparently, it is on the wish list to be able to assign the roles by group. At the moment you have to assign for individual users. So I've just done it for 15 users. There's an exciting hour of repeating the same process over and over again. And then I can just go, when it catches up with me, I can make that role permanent. So I could say, okay, Harry, you log in all the time, and I don't see any reason why you have to use the PIN to do this. I'm just going to give you permanent because I trust you. Or I can remove the right. So what it is it's quite difficult in 365 to kind of get a one-page view of what's all the roles and assignments been given to users. You've now kind of got it in this portal, so you can kind of do this here, which is quite nice. You can also do a filter. So I can just concentrate and say, I just want to know about these particular rights. So to filter down and just concentrate who's all the global admin rights or who's got global exchange. It's quite a nice view. And I can export it out. So I can export it out and maybe put it in a report or save it or send it to someone and say, here's Mr. Security Compliance Man, here's all the global admin rights you wanted to know about. So that's quite a nice improvement on its own. So if we jump over to Mary here, I'm going to go into privileges. And make Azure run faster. So Mary can see here that she's got active role assignments again, permanently assigned, and there's an action over here to request activation of this Exchange administrator. So it's going to pop up and say, hey, because you want to do Exchange admin, that's something that's a little bit dangerous, so we need to verify you are who you say you are. So then it's going to pop off and send me a text. And then it's going to take me back to the portal. Now I can activate it. I've identified who I am because I'm doing a demo. Ticket number. It doesn't allow you. It does allow characters. Ticketing system. So it is now. Unfortunately, you can't pre-populate that, so if you've only got one, you have to type it in all the time. Others might have multiple ones. It might be a third party like Datacom, so it might be our ticketing system. It might be the customers might have a different ticketing system if we're both doing it. And so this one's automatic approval. So any moment now.
Brendan, what's the point of telling the ticketing system? What do you do with that?
It's really just reporting, and it's just to make sure that you have a valid reason. What's your reason for activation? What's it associated with? So there's a ticket number because you need to have an email alias added to your email address. Okay, there's a ticket for that. There's a reason. So it's part of the auditing, I guess, really to say. And so I can go and deactivate it. So at any time you go, I don't need it anymore, I can deactivate it, or it'll just expire out. Oops, if I go back to here. If I go back to my roles now, it'll tell me that my active role is Exchange Administrator, and I have it until 8:29 tonight. So I've got 3 hours, 2 hours to go and do whatever task I need to do. If I wanted to see what was all the changes made, again, it's fully logged and fully audited. So you can see here actually on Monday when I was setting it up, I actually assigned her the role, and so the full auditing of how did Nick end up with Exchange Admin as permanent. Oh, I see that Brendan went and gave it to him 3 days ago. You shouldn't have done that, there's no change in control, who approved it, blah, blah, blah.
Trust that guy.
Go back and take it off. And I can see here that we've activated it, and you can see here that it was activated when I was testing it. It gave me a valid time, and then it expired. And so it became deactivated 2 hours later. So we can see when it was, what the system's doing in the background. I'll jump back over here and we go look at Mary Jones. We can see now that she's an Exchange Administrator. And if we actually go edit, we can see that it's actually just turned the tick on. So as I said, it's just like me going in and turning the tick on, and running when 1 and 2 hours later I need to go and turn that tick off. So it's just a task, some little task that's running in the background. It's just going to your tenant, turning these things on and off. I don't know how they're going to do it with Azure, but maybe clever. So we pop over back to Harry. So we're going to do Harry. Into my roles. Activate. Here I have to do my identity. Confused because things got confused because I've got 2 people logged on at the same time. Now, unfortunately, one side effect is when you have to log on to the Azure portal in order to do the elevation, as again some people have been saying, hey, can I do this inside the Office portal, because that's where I want to do all the stuff I'm doing, so I have to keep going through these systems. Because it's turned on the administrative right, it's like a group membership, you actually have to then log out of the portal and log back in for that right to become effective. So you'll notice here as Harry, oops, it doesn't, the admin tile won't appear even though he has admin rights. So just So again, I don't have an admin tile because I'm just a standard user.
One would hope that you'll be eventually able to do this from the admin app for Azure too, wouldn't you? Rather than having to log into a portal.
So I looked at that and you can't do it currently via that app. So that would be nice. If I could do it on my phone. Okay, great. Now I can go do some stuff in my portal. So this one here, same thing. You can see there's a pending request. So this one needs to be approved by someone. So it's just going to sit in the queue. I can't do anything until I jump back over to my administrator over here. And if I jump into email, you awake now? So Harry B has requested activation to the company administrator for this. This is a demo, so I get an email notification. Oh, I need to go and turn someone on. So I'd have to go back into here, and I can again see as the administrator or the privileged identity administrator. There's some approved requests. So here's Harry, he's called this as a demo, and I can simply deny or approve. Pretty simple. Approval reason, because I like Harry and trust him. Blah blah blah. Still thinking about it.
So Brendan, would you still see a need to have separate admin accounts for people, or should you just elevate your day-to-day account and let's do this stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one of my customers that I'm working with still has separate accounts, which can be a bit of a pain. Yeah, I don't know. Mixed thoughts about that. It does mean that. Well, I mean, the multi-factor authentication only. You don't get. It's turned on MFA, but it's not necessarily for your normal 365, so you won't get it when you log on to 365. It's not like a normal MFA you turn on. It's only when you're using PIM that's going to, so they've kind of done just to trigger just inside
so just
PIM.
for that particular service.
So you saw that I logged on to 365,
Yeah.
it didn't ask me.
Right.
was only when I tried to elevate a role, he goes, oh, okay, I just better check who you are. I presume if you just turn on MFA normally, then you go, well, we've got it on. So it's not annoying in that regard, although you can, bypass it for known IP addresses and all that sort of stuff. And I guess, if you're going to give someone any sort of ability to have admin rights, you should have MFA anyway. So as long as you don't give them privileged or permanent rights that are too elevated, right? So just read rights is probably okay. If someone got your account and then you didn't have MFA, they can't do too much. They might find some information. So I think the fact that it's got MFA, they'd have to get your phone or know something, and know your account and know your password. Then they'd have to know you have to do the elevation. So there's a few steps you need to do. So I think you're probably reasonably protected. Mailbox message in here. If we go back to, so that's now been approved, and again we can see that what I did is I approved it. So again, who approves the rights of, again, it's all audited. So if we jump back over to, where are we? Mary again, Harry's over here. So we go back to my roles. And so we see active roles. I'm again valid until, I can go right through to 1:30 this morning. It's going to be a late night. But you'll see over here, I don't have the admin tile, and even if I do a refresh of the page, I don't have admin. If we go back to, here's administrator. Interesting enough, it doesn't say he has any admin rights. Kind of interesting. Let's see what happens if I sign him out. Oh my God, didn't work today.
The admin tile will show up there.
It should show, yes, it should show up. So you have to log out and log in. Sometimes actually I did find, I might need, still think I have another session open, so we might just try. Not today.
It does show.
Azure's gone a bit.
Log.
Just not happy today, is it?
Is PIM in preview, Brendan, or is it GA now?
Yeah.
I think it's GA.
Yeah.
All approvers in my audit history as now in preview. So maybe the approval process is not quite working.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we found the bug. Worked on Monday.
That's because the US is on their Sunday.
Yeah, should have it.
While you're there, in how you have in Office 365, you have your list of your health, etc. Well, is it in Azure?
List of health, as in the service health.
Yeah, like you have it in Office 365.
In Azure, there's it's on the dashboard by default.
Because I haven't actually noticed it for a while.
Um,
Service health there. There it is. Oh, okay. Maybe I took it off my dashboard.
You get the ticks all around the world.
No services issues found. How was that?
Was this helpful? Yeah.
Thank you.
Back to verify my identity again. Usual demo data. Doesn't normally take particularly long to activate, so I'm not sure if this. Right, there we go. So that was a quick go. Does take a wee while for it to be reflected inside here, as it obviously goes in a queue and. There we go. The Global Administrator. It worked this time. So again, if I go back here, he doesn't have the admin. Oh, yeah, there we go. Did appear this time.
Gradually.
So now you have to actually sign it. So yes, so you do get the admin tile, but you can't do that.
Good time to think.
It's a log out, log in situation.
Yeah, so it's not quite as dynamic.
It's because that Active Directory underneath, right? You have to get a new token.
Yeah.
Two hats there.
The full stop.
Two hats.
Got the mistake in the email address.
You need
That would be
second one. It should be a full stop.
Where am I wrong?
Left.
Bring
Second
the left
left.
hand on.
There.
Yeah. No, right.
Right, stop.
Left. Yeah.
Doesn't look like a valid user ID. Strange. How do I do that? We've had a bad request. Very helpful.
It's been around for a while, isn't it?
Managed to find the actual breach and take a
Yeah, I saw
selfie
the
there.
picture as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
there it is. Ooh, really? How bizarre.
I can do some administration. It's going to take me half an hour to get into it.
You've got what you're supposed to do now.
Yeah.
do some stuff.
Time's up on the next project.
Yeah.
Always had an extra half an hour.
Any questions?
Yes, coach.
Sir, at the back.
Is there API to integrate with the help desk system like ServiceNow or E? I think we really don't want to manage the job between the two systems.
No, it doesn't look like there is at the moment. Not that I know of. I haven't looked.
Yeah.
Haven't seen anything about that. I think the intention is say you can force people to enter a ticket number, just as a pure reference to say if you're going through the audit report and you say, hang on, why did this happen? We can go back and look at the ticket, and then obviously you'll be able to ticket history. But no, there's no sort of, I guess, trigger that the service desk triggers the PIM, or the PIM can pull information out of the service desk. So no. It is fairly early days. To say they're still developing the Azure side, so they may. So one of the ones is to give roles out by groups, so that's certainly on the wish list. Being able to trigger PIM management or elevation inside Office 365, so that would certainly be nice. You don't have to go in and out of all these different portals or via the mobile phone. Yes, I'd watch the space. Any other questions? It's on silent. You're all thinking about, oh, I should go home and turn it on tomorrow.
Play. Yeah. So are you guys using this at Datacom? Like in your own tenants?
No.
No.
Too silly. Too silly.
Silly.
Not that I know of. I don't do the administration. I don't get access.
You don't have access to. Right.
I'm a consultant. They wouldn't let me do it. No, I don't know who inside Datacom does 365, 365 stuff. We're a bit behind. It's a large and complicated organisation.
Fair enough.
But I've just implemented it at one of my customers last week. It was on Monday actually. I just turned it on, so we've been planning that, testing that.
Cool. Going good so far?
One of the help desk guys said, how come I don't have global admin rights again? I said, did you get the email I sent you with the instructions on Monday? He said, oh yeah, we haven't read it.
Tell me why.
The instructions. Then he logged on with his user account. He said, I still don't have global, I can't elevate. I said, no, it's your A-dash account, it's your admin account.
The admin account.
Ah, bugger, I have to log on with that one.
So they still go with
We're still stuck with that.
Yeah.
They're pretty strict on their security policies, so I haven't really pushed that yet, but maybe an option to relax that. But
Will it order delegate admin access? So if a partner's got that access, you can apply those sorts of roles and just-in-time access for a partner. They still come through as a global admin by default.
Good question.
That partner account wouldn't be in their Azure AD though, right?
No, so you can only set users in Azure
It
AD.
needs to be in that Azure AD.
Right. So best practice then would still be to create a service account for them to come in and use as a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the case of this other customer, again, there's kind of mixed things on it. If the other customer, I pointed out to them, if you have a particular security policy, I said create all the AD accounts, admin accounts in their on-prem AD and sync it. So we have no in-cloud accounts. And the main reason for that is that we can manage the type of authentication you use. So I could add my Datacom account, but now the customer's relying on Datacom's authentication methods, validating who I am, or we don't have MFA. So if someone knows my password, they can log on as me and then have full admin rights to the user. So really you should log on to the users, the customer's AD, and if they want to turn on MFA, which we do, then at least they've got control. It's in their list. If they want to disable me, they can do that. It's in their audit reports.
Yeah.
So you have a bit more control. So yes, you should put them on Azure AD and then select them. And probably a good point is to disable delegated access. Now we're going to be somewhere else. There was something that something about licensing or something you could do if you had delegated access. It's kind of pull one way, pull the other. I think there are some things that are helpful if you do have delegated access.
Right.
So if you take it away, it's kind of like you help you to do other things. That is me done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Sweet. Alan had to Skype off early.
Other announcements? Aben's not going to be here till the rest of the year because his wife's expecting, so he's going to bow out and take it easy.
Due in September, I think. So
Yep.
he's probably going to take the rest of the year off.
But we'll ask the usual question too. If there's something that you do want to hear about, that we can track down a good speaker, or if you've got something you've been working on you want to share for 15 minutes and tell us a story or a war story or something funny that happened.
Yeah. Or if you've been inspired by Brendan and want to come up and do a double feature.
Yeah. We won't ask you now for another six to 10 months.
It's like jury duty, isn't it? I'm off,
Yeah.
I'm off for a year.
Yeah.
Pretty much. As usual, appreciate you all coming along. Hope you had a good time, learned something.
Thank you.
No worries. It's always a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you to the sponsors.
Thanks to the 5
Thanks,
people that
Microsoft.
stuck around for the whole time.
Yes.
All right.
Oh yeah, online.
Yeah, 5 people online.
The
Not
whole
bad.
time?
Yeah, the whole
Oh,
time.
that's
Oh, well done, guys.
Cool. All right. See you next time, guys.